Welcome back. We're in Genesis chapter 5, verse 1. Let's go. This is titled The Family of Adam. We can call it the Adam family. Not the Addams family, the Adam family. All right, 5:1. This is the book of the genealogy of Adam. In the day that God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them and called them mankind in the day they were created. So let's look at that. This is the book of the genealogy of Adam. So we're looking at Adam's descendants. In that day, God created man. So he's going back and kind of giving us a summary of the beginning of time, the beginning of Adam, and when mankind was made. And you can tell right here, just like we did in Genesis 1:1, right? The Bible opened with saying, in the beginning, God created. And right here it says, in the day that God created man. So it reiterates that. Just in case there's any confusion, God tells us twice right here in the first 5 chapters of the Bible. It says he made him in the likeness of God. He made us in his image. How awesome is that? Right? The invisible God, the Father, made us in his image in accordance with his character. And that's our desire and our goal in this life, is to resemble that likeness, to show peace like his, to show perseverance like he has, to show patience like he has, love, unforgiveness, kindness, all of that, right? That's his character, and he wants us to conform to that, and that's the sanctification. Once you are justified means it's justified, never sin. That's the point of salvation. You are justified. Then you spend your rest of your life on earth going through sanctification. That's conforming to the character of God, being more conformed to who he is and his attributes. And you're going to take steps back. You're going to backslide maybe for a moment. You're going to sin. You're not going to be sinless. You're still going to live in this flesh and be tempted. But you want to look more and more like Jesus as time goes on. And you'll find more peace and joy in that. And how do I know that? Because I am a testimony to that, right? I have far more joy and far more peace in my life because of Jesus, and I promise you that with all my life, and it's absolutely true. That doesn't mean that I don't get stressed out or anxious. I do. Right now, I've got a tremendous amount going on at work and with some things in life, and they're hard. But I'm far more peaceful and joyful than I would be without Jesus. And I just know that because I know my life before Jesus, and I know it now. And that's essentially my testimony. And I pray that you would think about that too. If you're lacking that peace and joy and you don't know Jesus, call on him. Talk to him. Trust in him as your Lord and Savior. And I promise he'll bring you that peace and joy unlike you have right now. And it just gets better over time because he helps you to settle in and see all this stuff that's going on in the world. It's just stuff. It's worldly. It's earthly. It's temporal, meaning temporary, and it won't last forever. In heaven, we won't have illness, death, disease, all that stuff. It's going to be absolutely amazing. No more tears. Only joy. All right. And it says, verse 2, he created them, male and female. There are 2 sexes, right? For some people to believe that there are more than 2 sexes, or to believe that you can have a sex change, is simply one of the greatest feats of Satan in all of history, right? I can't think of, maybe a few things that are categories like this, but for him to completely blind the eyes of people to think that they could actually become a different sex, or that there's more than 2 sexes, it's illogical. It defies science. It defies the Bible. It doesn't make any sense. But that's what happens when people start ruling their lives and trying to rule society based on their feelings, because everybody's feelings are different than another person. Their feelings change over time. Their feelings are different when they're in different parts of the world or different stages of life. And that's why we need something to have a benchmark, to benchmark ourselves against the truth, which is the Bible. It says he created them male and female and blessed them and called them mankind in the day they were created. And Adam lived 130 years. That's not how long he lived in total. So hold on for a minute. And begot a son in his own likeness after his image, and named him Seth. All right, so God is only mentioning the line of Seth here because that's the line through which we're studying right now, and the line through which Jesus came. You had Cain, you had Abel, you had Seth. Cain slew Abel. Cain wandered away, hid from God, went the other direction, ran from God. Abel, of course, was killed by his brother, and now we've got Seth, and that's the line that we're talking about. So Adam had Seth, and it says, after he begot Seth, the days of Adam were 800 years, and he had sons and daughters. So all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. All right, so Adam lived for 130 years before Seth. So he was 130 years old when he had Seth. Then he had more children, and then he lived another 800 years. So in total, he lived 930 years. So let's talk about that for just a minute. So dude was 130 years old when he had Seth, right? Think about that. 130 years old. Now, what's interesting is Cain was gone, right? Because Cain ran away and hid. I'm curious if Adam had anything to do with him, if he met any of his grandchildren or anything, or if they were so far away from God, or where was Adam? I don't know if Adam was, praising God or not at this point in time. My suspicion was that he was not. But so, he and Eve may have just kind of been alone for 130 years until they had Seth. How interesting to think about, right? And then they had other sons and daughters, and that's the place where, Seth and these others are getting their spouses from their either their cousins or their, let me see if I'm saying that right, cousins, nieces, nephews, or siblings, because that was the only pool that you could choose from back then. And because we're all related, we all go back through Adam and Eve. We all go through Noah and his wife, every single one of us. But we're so separated by that, kind of incestuous line, as we would call it today, because now there's genetic defects. Back then there weren't. He lived 930 years. So it's interesting because especially a lot of the unbelievers, they're looking for that fountain of youth. They want to live forever. They're focusing on, trying to keep their faces up and not let gravity take the wrinkles, and focusing on, liposuction and all this stuff to just try to live forever, and all these therapeutics and stuff and crystals, and I'm going to live forever. And no, you're not. And would you want to? I mean, Adam lived 930 years. If you asked me if I wanted to be on this earth for 930 years, I'd say no way, right? I think if God gives me, He's given me 47. If He gives me 60 or 80 or 100, great. And then I'm ready to go to heaven. I'm ready to go right now. I hope He raptures us before this podcast is even over, because I know that heaven is going to be so much better than this, right? This is for a Christian, this earth is as close as we'll ever get to hell. For an unbeliever, this earth is as close as they'll ever get to heaven. So I'm ready. Bring on heaven. So I don't want to live 930 years, but this dude did. And they were not as affected by their lives, and gravity didn't affect them as much, and disease and illness didn't affect them as much as it does us today, because just everything has been stained by sin now, so we don't live as long. And Adam died at the ripe old age of 930. God told Adam and Eve that the consequences of sin was death, and here Adam finally died. We look at time in one way, and God looks at it in another way. Because remember, to God, 1,000 years is like a day. We see that in 2 Peter 3:8. It said, with the Lord, one day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. And He's patient. He is patient. I mean, God has, it's been about 6,000 years since He created man and animals and the earth and everything. So He's been patiently waiting, seeing all these people turn from Him. If it were me, I'd be like, let's get the show over with. Let's go. Let's get my, the rest of everybody. Let's rapture them, get them up to heaven, get on with the 7-year tribulation and the 1,000-year millennial kingdom, which will be awesome. But no, He's got purpose for this. There's still people out there that He wants to come to Him. And if you're listening to this and you haven't accepted Jesus, you're one of them. We want you to come. We want you to join the team, be part of the church. Be part of Team Jesus. It's awesome. I promise you. All right, verse 6. Seth lived 105 years and begot Enosh. After he begot Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. So Seth lived to be 912. His dad 930, himself 912. Then Enosh lived 90 years and begot Canaan. After he begot Canaan, Enosh lived 815 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. So it went from 930 years to 912 years to 905 years. We're going downward. Verse 12. Canaan lived 70 years and begot Mahalalel. Pardon me. After he begot Mahalalel, Canaan lived 840 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Canaan were 910 years. He went up a little bit. He lived a little bit longer than his dad. 5 years longer. Mahalalel lived 65 years and begot Jared, and he begot Jared. After he begot Jared, Mahalalel lived 830 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years. So he went down 895 years. Oh man, that guy's getting gypped. He lived 40 years less than like his great-great-grandfather. Now stick with me for these names. I'm going to explain something in a minute that's really cool. Verse 18. Jared lived 162 years and begot Enoch. After he begot Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. We'll go back and talk about that tomorrow. Methuselah lived 187 years and begot Lamech. After he begot Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. All right, this guy went 969. He tops the cake. He's numero uno in terms of living right now. Lamech lived 182 years and had a son, and he called his name Noah. Here we go. Saying, "This one will comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord has cursed." After he begot Noah, Lamech lived 595 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. Oh man, that guy only lived 777 years. That's not very long. Verse 32, and Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about Enoch tomorrow, but I'm going to wrap this up with this. You and me look at that as probably one of the most boring portions of the Bible. And truthfully, to read it, for me, it is boring. Enosh begot, Canaan begot, but we can pull some nuggets out of here that are just incredible. One, we're saying how long people lived back then. They lived a long time because sin hadn't stained their bodies and the earth with illness and disease as much as it has today. Over time, it's just taken a horrible grip on mankind, on humanity. And so it's interesting to see that. Two is this. Each of these names has meanings, right? If you look up your name like in a book, it'll say what the meaning of your name is. And I'm going to explain what their names mean and then why that's important. Adam means man. Seth means appointed. Enoch, subject to death. Canaan, sorrowful. Mahalalel, from the presence of God. Jared, one comes down. Enoch, dedicated. Methuselah, dying he shall send. Lamech, poor and lowly. Noah, rest and comfort. So, we went through, God goes through this list from verses, this whole chapter 5, right? From verse 1 to 32. And we just said what each name in succession meant. Now let's read that together. And here's how it reads. If you, instead of just saying the name, it would read like this: man appointed, subject to death, sorrowful, from the presence of God, one comes down, dedicated, dying he shall send, poor and lowly, rest and comfort. Let me put that, add a couple of vowels and consonant verbs and nouns and stuff to it. Let's tie this all together, and here's what it says. It's actually the gospel message embedded in the names that can read like this. Here it is. Man is appointed to death, and that is sorrowful. But from the presence of God, one comes down, who is so dedicated that he dies, to send a message to the poor and lowly, to bring them rest and comfort. Do you see this? This is the gospel message right here in all these crazy names that are hard to pronounce, that no one names their kids today. And we go through there and we read it, and it's boring. But if you say, okay, why would he put it there? Why would he give me something so boring to read? Okay, one, I see that people lived a long time. That's cool. He could have said it a different way, but that's cool. Two, there's purpose. Let's look at the meaning of the names, put it together. It's actually the gospel. I'll read it again. Man is appointed to death, and that is sorrowful. But from the presence of God, one, who's that? Jesus, comes down, who is so dedicated that he dies. He died on the cross, right? To send a message, that's the gospel, to the poor and the lowly. That's you and me. Think the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. You can go through and read all those, but we're poor in spirit. All of that. Who are poor and lowly, to bring them rest and comfort. How does he bring us rest and comfort? God is the comforter. How does he give us rest? He says, come to me, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The gospel is embedded in these names in chapter 5, and that is awesome. Lord, thank you for this chapter. It's, goes past us. We've probably read it or heard it, and we're like, this is boring, I don't get it. But you're showing us that everything has purpose. Even these crazy names that are just, to me, boring to read. But then when I look at it and say, what's the purpose? The gospel message is embedded right there in chapter 5. How awesome is that? We thank you for that, Lord. Lord, give us strength in this day that we would honor you. In this day that when we are stressed or anxious, that we would give it to you, Lord, and ask you that your peace would rest upon us. We need that, Lord, because we are tempted and we are just surrounded by evil. Help us to witness and to love on people, Lord. In your name, amen. Everybody have a blessed day. And don't forget to check out truthgives.com. Thank you so much for listening to Daily Verse by Verse. We want you to be prepared in season and out of season to study the whole counsel of God so that you can share with people who Jesus is through your actions, so that you have the right to tell them who Jesus is, so that they can come to know Jesus or come to know Jesus better. We strongly encourage you to share this message, this podcast, on your social media, Facebook, Instagram, message, email someone who you think could benefit from it. It's an easy way for you to go out and witness to the world just by sharing this podcast. We hope you'll join us tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.